It's another week in the For Your Reference household, and hopefully not many others, but this will be the first time we are doing a combined review, full review sort of format with the combined WGA SAG-AFTRA strike. The For Your Reference household stands in full solidarity. Our Black, Brown, Indigenous creatives have been and will continue to be at the brunt of shady studio cuts. So friends and lovers, join us in the journey. Join us in the solidarity. Film critics are not a part of the strike, even though we are in solidarity. So we will still be reviewing. It's going to get nasty. Are you sitting on your Barbenheimer OT?
Mm-hmm.
It's about to go off. Let's get on with the show. Welcome back to the For Your Reference podcast. You got your host, Katie.
And Oti.
Okay, it's a very exciting time, friends and lovers. We have some big names. We also have some gorgeous indies that we're going to get to. And I know it's been some time, and I know everyone's ready to hear the muy caliente takes, and we're about to Barbenheimer, friends and lovers.
Hoo-hoo! You did some BBC clips up in this, eh?
I did. I really did. Love and splooshes to Maria Lewis, to Ellie Duncan and the team at BBC, as well as LaQuessa, the host. If you will be so nasty and so splooshy, OT, may you insert a clip?
Such very different films. You know, how does that work? Do you think it trivializes one or the other?
Well, I think part of what makes Barbenheimer such a cultural phenomenon is that they are vastly different, but they display what's so great about cinema. Barbie is very much of the now. It's got the looks, it's got the gifts, it's got the quotes. It's very much distilled for, you know, even commentary of what it's like to be a woman and to embrace media and that sort of thing. And it's very much now. Oppenheimer is, you know, it's got all of the Nolan beats that we all know and maybe love as well. The cinematography, you have very serious people that love film, the mechanics of film, and I'm sure for many years in film studies, we'll be talking about them. And that's what makes them so great, because they're so different, but they celebrate cinema in every vessel.
Wow, that was amazing.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, you killed it.
I think it's interesting because obviously we'll get into the discussion about Barbenheimer. And I guess on surface, it could feel disingenuous. But to me, there are two separate things. You know, the event watching, the spectacle, the sort of discourse around film is one thing. And then evaluating the film and reviewing and discussing meaningfully the film, they're two different things. So friends and lovers, if you don't understand what that means, go and listen to our Halloween episodes. Even our Mortal Kombat episodes as well, right? Like, it's fun to get into the love of watching films, right? So I absolutely still stand by my sentiments of, you know, Barbie and Oppenheimer being the best parts of cinema, or what makes cinema so great. I guess, yes, potentially it can be a marketing ploy as well. However, there is a lot of fun in being able to experience something with other people. I will say the preview premiere sort of screenings happened at around the time that we were trying to get clarity for film critics. So we actually didn't attend the premieres for Barbie and Oppenheimer. But to lead up to that BBC segment, I went and Barbenheimered myself.
You did.
And I think if you look at OT's renamed finance folder, he Barbenheimered himself while I was out.
Wow.
Those incognito searches won't save you, OT. So I've had the opportunity to watch both films. I will evaluate both separately. There has technically been time. Do you have a potential statement on why you haven't watched it, or if you're excited to watch it eventually?
I think I'm content enough to wait for it to come to streaming for me to watch them.
Okay.
I don't think I understand the interest around how Oppenheimer was shot and what people are going to watch it in its full glory, but I'm fine just watching it on telly. I'm a simple man.
You can just Barbenheimer yourself, hey?
Yeah, as for Barbie, it is what it is. I think I'll, watch it on a Sunday afternoon.
Okay. All right. Well, feel free to have a repartee with me, my nasty friend and lover.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about Barbie. Let's focus on Barbie. I think what I will say before officially speaking about Barbie, I did share earlier today before the release of this episode, I shared our Minx episode.
Yeah.
Because that was a great example of challenging white feminism. So you know what I'm going to get into. But let's get into my general sort of overview. Friends and lovers, because, you know, Barbenheimer in particular are so paramount to the discourse of now, I am going to spoil them. I guess we'll decide whether we spoil the other films that are on the docket today. But spoiler. Feminism.
Wow.
Fuck off. So friends and lovers, I guess that's an indication of whether you stay or not. Race, culture, sexuality, and other parts of identity were left in its original packaging, lowering the overall impact and highlighting the heavy-handed focus on the gender binary.
Wow, that's deep. I was going to make a joke about how, you know, it was left in its packaging just so that it could retain their value. NRFB, never removed from box.
You fucking nerd. I think, honestly, if we can be honest and if we can be real, as we always are, OT, I feel like you're slightly pleased that I didn't like Barbie.
No!
Because now you feel like you never have to watch it.
Or maybe. No, but I think I'm intrigued. I was intrigued to watch it before I had the reviews. I don't think that would sway me either way. I'm interested to see how Issa Rae performs in this.
Yeah, this is Issa's film.
It is President Barbie's film, and that's my gateway.
Well, let's get into it. I guess the initial, if I'm going to softball, if we're going to have a soft insertion, if you're nasty, it reminded me of Megan. You know, it was really anticipated, especially for us in particular, to go and watch Megan. And it was hindered by its rating. I feel like that's what we also get with Barbie as well. It tries to dive into waters that it cannot tread. And I feel like it's very convenient because of the rating that perhaps that's why it wasn't explored. I don't care for white feminism stretching into every experience.
Some might argue that saying white feminism is sort of redundant.
Because when you say feminism, you imagine Prigger in Minx.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's exactly it. And I think, I wouldn't say there's a complicitness, but it's like, if we know when people say feminism, they mean white women, then we're all doing a disservice to ourselves. Because if we're not talking about black trans women, if we're not talking about cis brown women, then what are we really doing?
Yeah.
And, you know, I also mentioned sexuality in there because there was a gorgeous trans actor in the film as well, but they didn't necessarily mention like sexuality. It was like everyone was straight. Everyone was a man or a lady and they were straight. It's like, what's the point? What's the point of this film? Why are we reducing ourselves to the gender binary that never made sense anyway? So I guess if we get into the film, the qualms that I had was they wanted to be on their soapbox, and I'll talk about America Ferrera in a second. I love her personally. However, she was really becoming like top tier final level boss white woman in this film. And she's not white. And that's the fucking problem, you see? And we even talked about this in Talk to Me as well, right? I wouldn't say Issa navigated in white ways. However, it definitely became that tick box. Oh, you're writing a film, you got to make the president black so you're progressive. Ayo, 24. I was just making sure you're still paying attention.
You about to be kicked out of this podcast. David Palmer is an institution. He opened the gateway for Barack Obama. Come on now. Put some respect on 24.
I was just making sure you were listening to the women talking about the women film. That's all. But it's like, so you wanna talk about gender, cool. You want to restrict gender to the binary, gross, but cool, right? So you're like, men are bad, men are bad, men are bad, without acknowledging race, without acknowledging culture, without acknowledging like ability, just nothing. Just like men are bad. Okay, cool. Greta Gerwig Mackie. Fine. Let's get rid of the men. Oh, we still have fucking problems? Oh, there's a hierarchy within women and you're at the fucking top of it? Fuck off. Fuck off. And you're speaking on behalf of everyone?
Wow.
Like, I'll fuck me and I'll fuck you too. Fuck off. It was so fucking frustrating because like the premise of it is so surface level. This bubblegum sparkly aesthetic feminism or white feminism that you want to call it is really a way to dodge that plastic perfect sort of Hollywood, right? Because what we thought Barbie was going to be was a satire, right? It was going to be a bitey sort of satire, maybe not to the level of like Promising Young Women in regards to, you know, the themes that were explored there, but I guess in the sort of revenge war path that Promising Young Women had, right? I thought we were going to get some sort of commentary, some sort of satire. You know, one of my first sort of thoughts while I was watching this film was, is this really going to do Adriana DeBose The Thing, or is it just The Thing, you know? Because by being The Thing, you're not doing anything. Fuck off. This is Triangle of Sadness for dolly babies.
Wow. You have such high expectations of what this movie was.
No. Don't crowd white women ideals in all of your seemingly diverse dolls that all say the same fucking thing. There was so many lines of dialogue about Margot Robbie having cellulite because God forbid someone that looks so gorgeous and perfect like her can have cellulite and then she's like, what, defiled for the rest of her life? Fuck off. I'm sick of this. And you know what the problem is? The film set up the premise to be that way. So bleeding heart, so on their soapbox. No one asked, bro. Put on a pretty dress and fuck off.
Jeez. All right.
No, but I'm saying if it just played to the aesthetic, if it just had a lot of fun, like these Ken man babies are just a lot of fun, cool. But it turned into Ryan Gosling's Ken character going to the real world and realizing, oh, men are actually more powerful. And then he tries to inject that toxic masculinity into the Barbie world.
Wow.
I don't get it. And it's the state of film criticism as well. I'm calling everyone out. You said 24. Fuck your institution. Fuck your film criticism. Fuck your long film marketing ploy as an ad. Fuck off. I feel like we're in Deadwood. I'm reaching my fuck count, OT.
Wow. Man, Tupac had nothing on you. Hit him up over Barbie, eh? All right, so...
Wow, did I make you speechless?
I'm just trying to see how I can. So let's talk about how was the dialogue? How was the shot? How are the shots? Anything that was intriguing that you thought, hey, that's sort of interesting.
Oh, you know how bad the dialogue and how surface plasticky level it was? When Barbie left Barbie Land and she went into the real world, she saw construction men and she was like, oh, we need some like feminine pep. Of course we would go to the construction workers. Okay, we fucking get it. Get lost.
Okay, I think it's time for Oppenheimer.
I don't know. It's like, why have so many different Barbies and Kens, but make them all one-dimensional? Ken is a man. Yeah, cool. Men are all the problem. You know, that's what I also don't understand as well. Why do you keep talking about gender and you don't even talk about race? How does that even make sense? Because I'm pretty sure there are some Karens in Barbie Land.
But you had a black president. Racism is solved.
Who wrote the black president? Exactly. But honestly, like, I'm just sitting here minding my business, right? You're the one that brought this premise here and failed to deliver. And you can blame it on rating, you can blame it on whatever you want. But there's such a disingenuous, no one asked you to do this. And also there was a very disgusting line in here. And this is also something that I'll say, we talked to me about you watching while black, me watching while brown. Or even, I guess if we're all about sweeping generalizations, watching while non-white. There was was a line in this film, and I'm also conscious of the fact that America Ferrera is the character that said it. They were talking about how Barbie Land and the Kens were at war, right? War is a strong word, but it's the biggest conflict that they have in the film. And then you have America Ferrera citing and drawing parallels between the indigenous people and smallpox in the 1500s of Barbie Land and the Kens, saying that the indigenous people didn't have defenses. Are you for fucking real? Why do we even talk about Gone with the Wind and having to put introductory warning things when you're just going to fucking do it in a 2023 Barbie film about feminism? Yay, but not the indigenous women back then, right? Right?
Yeah. Wow.
No, but really, for what reason would that line need to be there? And that just shows how fucking white it was, that they felt they needed to draw, this is how severe the situation is. It was indulgent. It was preachy. And America Ferrera also had a whole speech saying, oh, you want to be thin, but you can't say you're thin. You have to say you're healthy, but you can't want to be thin and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, fuck off. All of you fucking skinny anyway. Shut up.
Wow.
But you know what I'm saying.
I know. I hear what you say.
You're talking about how this is so edgy and this is a critique on the plastic perfection of Hollywood, but you're literally that. Helen Mirren had a narration within the film because, you know, Margot Robbie's stereotypical Barbie was having a complex, and then Helen Mirren narrated, and obviously it was very funny to the audience, being like, oh, they probably shouldn't have hired Margot Robbie if they wanted to highlight how unperfect she looked. Really? Get lost. Miss me with that mess. Are you for real?
Wow. I don't know what to add to that.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I don't think I have. No, I think if you try to introduce something that is trying to say a lot and you don't deliver it, and you just want to talk about gender and you don't want to address race or anything like that, then royally you can fuck off. And film criticism will not be dead as long as I'm around.
Let's go to Oppenheimer now.
Yeah, thank you, Segway King. This was interesting because how I felt about the film was me respecting the film and realizing that there were themes that just weren't for me, as opposed to the film not delivering on what it was promising to deliver, if that makes sense. So Oppenheimer is on the cusp of changing the world, mostly for the worse, but barely focuses on the moral quandary of this. It had all the Nolan beats people have come to love, but were missing the snarky Sorkin dialogue of A Few Good Men and smooth Tarantino style of Inglourious Bastards.
Woo.
Yeah.
Did they even get some Sorkin walking?
The dialogue wasn't great, which we'll come to. And I was chatting to one of the guys at work. I wouldn't necessarily call him a film bro, but he does lean to a lot of film bro-y sort of films. But I was talking to him about Oppenheimer, and this was before I had realized I was actually going to Barbenheimer myself. And he was talking about how excited he was to watch Oppenheimer. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Just don't expect any good dialogue. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, Nolan's not known for like great dialogue. And I think he didn't even realize that was like, it was a given. And then he was like, how about Batman? And I was like, first off, I rise from the dark shadows. That's not great.
Wow.
But even then, that's part of an IP. That's not necessarily like Nolan beats, as I would classify it anyway. The dialogue wasn't great in the film. And I think also what I would also, I guess, offer is I'm not necessarily one for war films. So I acknowledge that that's something that's a barrier for me in general, if there's anything about war films. And I also need dialogue. Like I always hold on to really great sort of dialogue. So this film didn't necessarily have that. It did have sex scenes, which I believe was the first sort of introduction of sex scenes in a Nolan film.
Oh, really? Tell me more.
No, you don't need to know more. I don't know. I just like, we're beautiful, sensual, nasty people, but usually the sex scene should relate to the narrative at some point.
So
right?
did it just feel gratuitous?
It wasn't even gratuitous. You can't even blame it for that.
Oh.
It was, I don't know. It was just there. It was a vanilla swirl on a Wednesday. I don't know.
Vanilla swirl on a Wednesday.
In flavor. So, yeah, 3 hours, not feeling it, fam. But if we ignore the long runtime, it's a gorgeous film, albeit about a terrible, terrible device, a life-changing device for the worst. But even if we just focus on like the storytelling of Oppenheimer, which it's interesting because for some people, if it's shot really well, that's the end of the story, but not for me. If you'll pardon the pun, the story is everything for me. I wish there was more of a focus on the moral quandary, right? Like, I don't know, like it wasn't as if it was just a normal film. It was about the turning of a corner of something that we can never come back from.
So there was no sort of reflection at all?
No, there was a character that tentatively had a bit of a quandary about it. But I don't know, for something that is it just didn't balance the heaviness in which it ushers into the world, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Again, the dialogue wasn't really great. He was slipping and sliding. He was definitely a philanderer, but I don't think anyone really cares about that respectfully, unless you're like the wife or anything. No one talks about the great inventors of the world and be like, oh, they were slipping out of their marriage. Like no one, you know what I mean? Like so it was interesting that was something that was focused on in the film, but also for a film about like creating a bomb and explosions, there wasn't a lot of that, which maybe was an artistic sort of choice. There was a way of visualizing that Oppenheimer, like the way that his mind would work. I think the way they described him was he wasn't necessarily like, he was really good at theorizing and bringing people together and ideas and that sort of thing. So the way they visualized that was very interesting. But if we're talking about like bing bang boom sort of moments, there wasn't a lot of that, which is fine because that's not necessarily what I come to watch the film for anyway. But if a lot of it is dialogue driven, which it is, it's weird that there wasn't a lot about the moral quandary, because then what are we talking about, my guy?
Wow. So how was the sort of pacing with the 3 hours?
It did that Nolan thing where it had like multiple timelines and they were all explaining things. I think it was supposed to be like a deposition type thing, and they kept cutting back and forth in time.
Right.
Yeah. And then there was like this whole moment with him and Einstein, and I'm like, what? I don't know. It was already hard for me to engage, I think is what I'm saying. And the things that I would usually cling on to, like the moral quandary, storytelling, dialogue, it wasn't necessarily there, but it wasn't trying to over preach. Well, if anything, it under preached. But I definitely appreciated that aspect of it.
Okay.
There was a really gross line of old white men be old white menning when they were talking about where they should attack in Japan. And one of the old white men said he's taking Kyoto off the list because of cultural significance, because that's where him and his wife holiday. Fuck off.
People's perspectives, eh?
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like they put those lines in for non-white people to sit there and feel uncomfortable. Because for what reason?
Or is it a man of culture?
Or is it for white people to be like, yeah, we're still on top? Like, for what reason do you need to put these weird lines in? The women were needy and annoying in this film, but that's neither here nor there.
All right.
I guess we can finish Oppenheimer with something light. Do you remember that Key and Peele sketch where Jordan Peele was playing Neil deGrasse Tyson? Yeah. Oppenheimer was essentially doing that in the film. He was like, oh, nothing matters. It's all space. It's like, oh man, if it were not for the brilliant Key and Peele sketch beforehand, I was like, that's a great way to get out of your cheating ways.
You were getting your comedy from something else.
And I just wrote, so being a player is enlightenment. Well, let's move on. Do you want to hop on the mic, OT?
Oh.
You want to tussle and rumble in my ring?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's get into Streets of Color. Thank you so much to Ronnie as well as Yolandi for giving us access to the screening. It has been very busy, but hopefully the premiere night for Streets of Color went well as well. But let's get into our thoughts on Street of Color. What I will say, friends and lovers, Ronnie is a local filmmaker, and this film is set in Mount Druitt. And if you're from Western Sydney, if you're from the proverbial area, you know what that means. I was adjacent in the 2148. But take it away, OT.
Street of Color shifts from typical Australian cinema, presenting Ronnie's unique take on racism. Yet, it occasionally stumbles into familiar tropes.
Ooh, okay.
So, a lot of context and a lot of background was gotten from you because I didn't know much about Mount Druitt.
And you avoid Western Sydney as much as possible. You're the one that crosses the street, eh?
Oh, wow. But I think the biggest intrigue for me was seeing sort of the different shades of people. We don't really get that, especially for Australian cinema. The storyline, I think it started off quite strong. I bought into the characters and into the relationships, but that's sort of changed halfway through where it felt, okay, so I thought we were, with the Streets of Color and getting this sort of perspective, I was expecting something that wasn't as tropey for Black people.
Yeah.
And
it was interesting because I feel like the Black characters were treated the worst in this film. And this film was about racism.
That was sort of through my lens. So it felt a bit weird, but overall, an interesting take.
Well, I'm picking up what you're putting down. Ronnie has a distinct voice, and Streets of Color is a complicated love letter to his experiences. The film centers on racism and is able to explore many layers. However, in some instances, the portrayal of some characters succumb to that very thing, which is pretty much what you were saying as well. Something that I would also say as well, there weren't many brown people in this film. And when I say brown, I mean Pacifica. You, even without trying, I'm not even talking about characters, even without trying, you will see islanders everywhere in Mount Druitt. So I'm not sure. Maybe there was a mean Kai somewhere else, and that's where all my islanders were. Because it was like really racist white people, very nice white people, Habibis, and some Black people. And I'm like, well. I think the best parts of Streets of Color are the ones that note to the area and speak to personal experiences. But personally, for me, it was hard to, I guess, connect and resonate when I feel like mine and a lot of other people's experiences didn't necessarily overlap with that. I definitely don't want to spoil the film because if you do have a chance to watch it, strongly recommend. But I think of films like Boys in the Hood, for example. And I feel like there were moments that, as a filmmaker, I imagine that there are things that you want to say. There's sort of messaging that you want to be able to instill into the film, right? And there are ways to explore that, whether it's through cinematography, whether it's through dialogue, whether it's through character interactions and that sort of thing. There were definitely some sort of messaging in Streets of Color. However, the way in which it was delivered in the film, again, it's not to say that it's not accurate, but in my experiences, it didn't make sense. And what I mean by that is, there's a moment where you have the three friends, the three characters, and I believe they're just out of high school. They're potentially smoking in a car in a parking lot late at night, right? And they start talking about their futures or their lack of prospects for a future, which that's absolutely fine. But the way that the dialogue was actually explored was the main character was saying something to the effect of, because we live in a lower socioeconomic sort of area. And the only thing I would say to that is at 17, 18, 19, I was the nerdiest fucking Tongan Pacific Islander ever, right? But even I didn't talk like that.
Bruh. Education has changed.
It was like Coach Carter or some shit. I was waiting for Faith Evans and Twister to tell me to be hopeful.
Wow. Yeah, definitely interesting to just transfer sort of the lives of the characters. I found myself wanting more from it and expecting sort of more.
Yeah.
Just because it's from a different sort of lens.
Yeah.
And one of the best songs as well.
What a banger.
Mm-hmm.
What a way to end the film. So good. Such a great vibe, such a great energy. Moving on from one local independent filmmaker to another, we have After She Died. Jack Dignan enters the mortal realm with this exciting, fresh horror film, After She Died. Love the innovative shots and use of connection between the core characters that a lot of us can resonate with.
Oh, 100%. For me, After She Died captivates with its compelling concept, exploring grief's depths and the lengths one might traverse to maintain a lost bond, regardless of fallout. Early on in the movie, I thought that I'd sort of figured it out, but I hadn't on what the movie might give us. But it was sort of interesting to be taken on that journey.
Yeah.
And it felt just fresh.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it felt like a palate cleanser, and you could tell a lot of love and effort has been put in.
Yeah, I think this is what I really love. There's something really great about independent horror. And even while watching this, it reminded me of the first Evil Dead. You know, how you can get so creative, how you can get so innovative. It's not about massive budgets. It's what you have available, the skills that you sharpen, and how you're able to, I guess, outlay a sort of narrative, right? So with really creative, innovative filmmaking, as well as a really interesting sort of premise. I'm not entirely sure how much is in the trailer, so I won't spoil a lot of it. But I did love the aspects of a bilingual sort of entity. I just thought it was really interesting. I think it's so cool to see what people can create without any sort of restriction of storytelling, of, you know, being able to craft a narrative.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I think if there's ever a sequel, I'd expect him to incorporate a vine to follow in.
I thought you wanted him to have it based in Kenya or something.
Keeping true to the Evil Dead franchise, you know? Yeah.
But, you know, what else can we say that this film hasn't already gotten in way of love and also accolades? But it's been so fun to, you know, be able to dabble into local independent horror. Also, shout outs to Talk to Me as well.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's finish off, OT, with another horror, Insidious, The Red Door.
Oof.
They should have called this Patrick Nolshka Wilson, the upskirt of the wind.
Wow. Akin to Child's Play 3, Insidious The Red Door sees grown-up protagonists facing old fears. Despite some flat moments, it was an interesting final chapter.
I love the Child's Play reference, you film wanker. Because no one cared about Andy when he got older.
100%.
Because when Andy's a little kid, you're like, protect at all costs. And once he turns into a pimply teenager, you're like, you're on your own, bruv. Grab some pepper spray, you'll be fine. But as soon as you said that, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Unlike Chucky, I don't know if Insidious can find a new life in different tonalities. But yeah, that Child's Play through, I'm definitely picking up on that. Patrick Wilson lands some cool shots, and Hayam Abbas is a welcome reprieve to predictable storylines and tropes. There is a tangible gap in what might have been achieved if the Red Door opened through expectations.
Whoa.
I hate that. That's stupid. Oh, well.
Wow. So here's the thing, though. Right? Insidious hasn't been my biggest sort of franchise.
No.
You know, I've watched it. I thought, you know what? Cool. All right.
Doesn't help that Patrick Wilson is at the helm of 2 of them.
Why not?
With Vera Farmiga, like, it's just, why have so many?
Do you feel like, oh, am I watching The Conjuring? What is this? No, like, I felt going into this film that I had 0 expectations going in because I was super intrigued to see how they do it.
Okay.
You know, and like And unlike Halloween, the final chapter, where a lot of people had issues with how it was done, I could find reasons around, you know what, it made sense to me.
Show it your tits.
Exactly. But with this, it just felt why. I asked myself why.
Yeah.
A lot. Even the dynamic between Chris and Dalton. I was like, I didn't get that at all.
Yeah.
You know?
But you knew it was going to happen.
I knew it was going to happen. And
Because
I remember
movie.
when we were watching, I think it was the second Insidious. I was like, oh, how are we ever going to get a black character? And then...
Actually, yeah. No, actually, I need to call you out, OT. I'm very passionate, but I actually forgot. So I'm glad you brought it up. Because we'd run out of time, but we had started watching the Insidious films. I think we got up to 2 before the actual preview screening, right? And in the first one, you just felt a little bit spicy and you're like, oh, I wish they had black people in here. I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Because if they put in black characters, they're going to be acting in these waffly Dalton ways.
Yeah, that answered my question pretty profoundly.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, I love Patrick Wilson. I love how he carries movies.
He just seems like another variation of Will Arnett.
Wow. He seems more edgy to me. It feels...
Can he voice Sweet Tooth in Twisted Metal?
Why not?
Talk about that. I hope in some format we can talk about Twisted Metal, but we'll come to that another day.
Yeah, but I think a lot of the things that I expected from the movie, it didn't deliver. And I expected them while sitting, watching it and thinking, oh, maybe they'll do it this way. And they didn't.
Shout out to Robin Triz, because we were able to all of us were sitting together watching the screening together from Smoke and Mirrors. All 3 of you were very disappointed. I think I had the most fun watching the film, but I think it's also because I didn't have nostalgia tax. I didn't necessarily plug into the franchise, because all of you were very disappointed with the movie.
Yeah, I think rightly so. I think once you have a final chapter of sorts, you expect, if not balls to the wall sort of moments, you'd expect the pacing at least to be something of, oh, we're actually trying to do a lot with the movie. And it just didn't feel like that. It felt like barely had a script and it just dragged.
Yeah.
And there were moments in the movie I was like, oh man, I was thinking about something else.
Yeah.
So when that happens to me, I'm like, okay, this is definitely not working. We need to fasten it up. We need to switch it up somewhere. Just make it a bit more interesting, because a lot of these things I felt were covered in the Fast and Insidious movie.
Yeah, we're getting like weaker offerings of the first one.
We did it, but now we're just doing it with older people.
Yeah, we're just reusing the same tea bag.
Oh man, I miss T-Bag from Prison Break.
Well, hold on to this pocket then.
I will. Yeah.
Well, we started off with raging white feminism, so I guess ending on a so-so white mediocre actor is okay.
Get in the bin.
Thank you, friends and lovers, for joining us another week in the For Your Reference household. Appreciate the FYR, babies. Are you going to watch Barbie and give your thoughts, or you think we're done on this podcast?
No, I'm good. I think I've gotten everything I needed from the movie. I can watch the highlight reels when we get to see we might get a composition on YouTube of all the Easter scenes, you know.
The most shocking thing to me wasn't anything that I was saying about Barbie. It was you saying that David Palmer was the reason why we got Barack Obama into presidency.
It showed people it's possible.
With you, any blackness is possible.
Fact.
I love you.
Love you more.
If you would like to default to factory settings on Twitter and Instagram and Spill, we're on @ForYourFPod.
Write us an email at hello@fypodcast.com.
We're also on Race Wars, but the Fast and Furious one podcast if you'd like to leave a rating and review. And we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
Bye.